I am Zunaira Azhar and this is Decode, where we define and analyze stories around us. We are living through a moment where the rules that were supposed to govern how states behave towards each other, towards civilians, towards the institutions built after the last World War are being broken in plain sight. And the breaking is being normalized faster than the condemnation can keep up. A helicopter goes down near the Strait of Hormuz, and within hours, a water supply for 20,000 people is gone. A president says a deal is closed while his military is in the air. An international court rules that a treaty cannot be suspended unilaterally, and the country that suspended it calls the court illegal. A government wins an election on a platform of detect, delete, and deport, and starts doing exactly that to people whose documents got torn up because they were pushed across the border. Tonight, we are going to sit with all of this, not just the events, but what they mean, who they serve, and what the world looks like when the people with the most power decide the rules are optional. On Tuesday night, the U.S. military launched strikes against Iranian air defense systems and radar stations near the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes were ordered by President Trump after Iran downed an American Army Apache helicopter in the area. Both crew members were rescued using an unmanned surface drone operated by the U.S. Navy's Task Force 59 in Bahrain. Trump described it as the first ever rescue of its kind. Iranian state media reported attacks across multiple locations in the south of the country, including the port city of Bandar Abbas, Qishm Island, and the towns of Sirik, Minab, and Jask. Among the targets hit were two concrete water storage reservoirs in the Bamani district of Sirik. Iran's IRGC confirmed the reservoirs were destroyed. Approximately 20,000 residents in the surrounding areas, including Bamani and Kushtak, lost access to safe drinking water. This happened during a heat wave, with temperatures in the region between 45 and 50 degrees Celsius. This is not the first time water infrastructure has been hit. On March 7th, Iran's foreign minister accused the U.S. of striking a desalination plant on Qishm Island, cutting water supply to 30 villages. Iran denied the U.S. denial and called it a war crime. Iran retaliated. The IRGC launched strikes against U.S. military installations in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan overnight. The U.S. said nearly all incoming missiles and drones were intercepted. Iran's military then announced the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz to all vessels, including oil tankers and commercial ships. U.S. Central Command denied the closure. As of this morning, the dispute over what is open and what is not remains unresolved. Trump, speaking from the Oval Office, said he would hit Iran hard again. He also said a deal was still possible. Sirik is not a military town. There are no radar stations there, no air defense systems, no strategic assets. It is a small coastal community in the south of Iran where 20,000 people depended on two concrete water reservoirs for their drinking water. Those reservoirs are now bombed. This is the second time in this war that water infrastructure serving the Iranian civilians has been hit. The first was the Qishm desalination plant in March. International humanitarian law, and specifically the Berlin Rules on Water Resources adopted in 2004, classify these as protected sites. The legal question is not complicated, very clear. The political one is because there is no enforcement mechanism, and everyone in that room that Washington sits in knows that. Trump is bombing Iran and saying a deal is imminent. This is not a contradiction if you understand the logic. Military pressure is the leverage. Every strike is meant to raise the cost of not signing. But this logic has a ceiling. At some point, the strikes stop being pressure and start being the reason Tehran cannot sign, because no government survives being seen to surrender under fire. Pezeshkian said yesterday that Iran must move beyond neither war nor peace. That is a president calling you the current posture is unsustainable. He's not telling you which direction he moves next. The ambiguity is deliberate. And Trump, who is frustrated, who is running out of options, patience, and who needs something to show for this at home, just bombed a water supply. This is not a sign of strength. It is a sign that the pressure track is not delivering what was promised. I have with me a very apt guest for this geopolitical situation that we are discussing almost every day. I have Massimiliano D'Amore with me, who is a geopolitical intelligence analyst, and he also specializes in maritime security and proxy warfare. Thank you so much, Massimiliano, for joining us. You must be following everything that is happening with this conflict closely. Now, the U.S. has struck the water reservoirs in Syrique on top of the Kashim desalination plant back in March. Now, international humanitarian law is very clear that civilian water infrastructure is off limits. Is Washington crossing a legal red line intentionally? Or is there an argument that these are dual-use facilities that can be legitimately targeted? You know how the things are framed differently by each side. How do you look at it?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for your invitation. It's a pleasure. So quite honestly, the episode of yesterday changed my perspective on the current state of things. Previously, I was seeing this phase of the conflict as an exchange of fire, but within a controlled escalation framework. Now I have some doubts about that. As you indicated, we are potentially reviewing a case of war crime. Indeed, the international military law specifically indicates off limits civil infrastructure, especially if the military advantage after the attack is quite small, with due respect to the civilian arm. As you said, roughly 20,000 people have now lost access to water, and I would like to remember that that area is historically known to come to grips with difficult environmental condition and drought cases.
Right, and especially in this heat where Iran has a pattern of yearly drought and the heat is 50 degrees. So I don't know what they're thinking, but Trump is launching strikes and saying a deal is days away 37 times. He has said this repeatedly in every sentence.
I saw that.
Yeah, and Iran is now retaliating and saying it wants to move beyond this state of neither war nor peace. If both sides genuinely need a deal, what is that one single thing that is preventing it, in your opinion?
That's a good question. There are actually a lot of things that are preventing this deal. We have the Lebanon case that was the actual trigger of this new escalation phase. Also, the dossier of Hormuz is not closed right now. The Lebanon case and the Strait of Hormuz are being used as a bargaining chip, especially the conflict with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon has been also used by Iranian as a sort of diplomatic trap, because in this way the Iranian leadership is able to shift the burden of responsibility from the United States to Lebanon, to Israel with the Lebanon case, and therefore being able to blame the USA for not being able to enforce a sort of hard line in this conflict and manage the reaction and the actual day-to-day operational reality in Lebanon. In this way, therefore, Iran is able to maintain this maximist posture. Yeah, and so I see at that end, especially for the biggest dossier, which is the nuclear files.
Right. If you look at Iran's 5-point counter proposals, that came after the 15 points from the U.S., it demanded a guarantee. It still demands a guarantee that neither the U.S. nor Israel will return to military action once any agreement is signed. Washington doesn't talk about that. They have not even offered anything close to it. Is that guarantee structurally impossible for any American president to give? Or is it a negotiating position that they want to remain in that position that we can bomb you anytime?
I believe this is a dead end from both parties. This request was designed given the historical record of mistrust between Iran and the United States. For instance, for what regards the nuclear dossier, Iran has found themselves in positions where they were quite near to find a sort of deal, a sort of agreement, and then the military option was chosen by either Israel or in coordination with the U.S.
Right. Well, we saw that Iran has declared that the Strait of Hormuz is now closed, even more so since last night, it says.
Yep.
The U.S. denies it. The UAE says full oil flows will not resume until 2027. And we heard Antonio Guterres saying that a major recession is coming if this issue is not resolved. Now, Pakistan brokered the April ceasefire and is still at the table at the UN. What is the real cost of this standoff to the countries who are just sitting between these two powers? Consider Middle Eastern countries part of it because they have military bases, so they are just caught in the situation, and consider the region as well. How do you look at this standoff?
Yeah, so I think that the majority of people did not grasp the seriousness of this standoff, especially for what regards the maritime dimension. Indeed, if the Strait of Hormuz would to be reopened today, we will see like a normal flow of cargoes and ship around September and or October. So the effects are long lasting, and especially the recovery will be on the long term. And then we did not mention the UTKs. Indeed, when Iran launched 30 missiles inside Israel a few days ago, on parallel, the UTs decided to start a new campaign of fear in the Red Sea, claiming that they would strike every Israeli ship either going to or coming from Israel. So right now we are witnessing a disruption that has never been existed before, because there's a double paralysis, both the Red Sea crisis and the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. My last question, since yesterday the IAEA has emerged again. The board has voted to demand Iran to declare its remaining enriched uranium stocks. Tehran called it whitewashing military aggression. Yeah. Russia and China has voted against it. Now, does this vote help or hurt the diplomatic track, in your opinion?
I would say neither of the two. The Iran logic is quite simple. We are basically saying you been bombarding our nuclear sites. You have been forcing our inspectors out, and now you are asking to get them in again. Also, for to this extent, I would say that big misalignment between the expectation of the two parts, and in order to understand more closely Iranian stance, I think that we need to get a closer look inside Iranian leadership. Indeed, the enriched uranium is an hard line for Mojtaba Khamenei, and more specifically for the real deal and the real decision maker in Iran right now, which is senior IRGC leader Ahmed Vahidi.
Right. Just a sub-question to this. What does it tell us about where the international community is actually standing? Because we have seen previously Europe keeping itself aloof of this conflict, totally negating coming into this conflict directly. But now at IAEA, they are all sitting together again. What does this signal?
Yeah, it's a strategic signal, but there's going to be no real or concrete changes to the situation due to this, I would say, pretty unuseful entanglements between diplomatic tools and war dynamics, given the initial situation of mistrust and also the stance of Iranian leadership about the nuclear power being as a sovereign right for the country. Also, I would like to mention that it's quite overlooked, I think, the fatwa that Ali Khamenei issued about nuclear powers. Sorry, about the nuclear arms. I would say that I'm not a Shia scholar, so I'm not able to evaluate whether this the degree of binding power that this fatwa has, but it certainly is an element that needs to be considered in evaluating this sort of good faith of Iran in terms of nuclear arms.
Capability.
However, on the other hand, from the last inspection of the agency, from Raffaele Grossi statements, we know that Iran has approximately 440 kilos of enriched uranium, so up to 60%, which is way off the target for a civil use.
Right. Massimiliano D'Amore, thank you so much for joining.